On my 30th birthday, Evan asked me for a divorce for the third time. We live in the wealthy area of Greenwich, Connecticut. Outside the window is a lawn manicured as perfectly as a golf course. Inside is the suffocating, climate-controlled air. Evan swirled a glass of single malt whiskey in his hand, sitting on that $6,000 Eames lounge chair, scrutinizing me like an executive in the middle of conducting layoffs. Rachel, Julia is such a spiritual woman. She's like a clear spring. She has suffered in silence for so long for my sake. She doesn't even mind being a bystander to my toxic marriage. I can't let her down anymore. After he said this, he leaned back slightly, his eyes wary, a defensive posture trained by a long career on Wall Street. He was guarding against me going crazy like the previous times, crying, smashing things, or kneeling on the floor begging him not to leave for the sake of our daughter, Lily. But this time, I just looked at the vegan gluten, free cake on the table that was still radiating a chill, specially ordered to cater to his recent obsession with the so-called paleo diet, and it tasted absolutely awful, and nodded indifferently. Okay. Evan froze. The long speech he had originally prepared, that bullshit about soulmates, quantum entanglement, and incompatible energy fields, got stuck in his throat like a fishbone. What did you say? He frowned, a glint flashing across those exquisite gold-rimmed glasses. I said, okay, I repeated, my voice even steadier than the air conditioner unit outside the window. Divorce, I agree. When Evan asked this, I had just tucked our daughter Lily in. He blocked the pink door of her room like a debt collector, speaking through the crack of the half-open door. Julia got with me innocently. She isn't after my money, she just wants me. I can't look down on that kind of devotion. How ironic. Innocently? Not after money? I looked back at the small bed in the dim room. Lily's long eyelashes fluttered, and her small hand outside the covers unconsciously clutched the sheets. She wasn't asleep. She was only 6, yet she had already learned to pretend to sleep in this home filled with cold violence. At that moment, the last shred of hesitation in my heart vanished completely, like necrotic tissue excised by a scalpel. I shoved Evan toward the hallway and closed my daughter's door in one motion. The crystal chandelier in the living room stung my eyes. Today was my 30th birthday and also our 7th wedding anniversary. It seemed like just the blink of an eye. The vows from the Yale graduation ceremony were still ringing in my ears, yet he had been cheating for a full 3 years. You really agreed? Evan still couldn't believe it. He put down his wine glass and even took a step forward. Rachel, don't tell me you're playing some hard-to-get trick. You know I'm very busy. The market has been volatile lately, and I don't have time to play these housewife mind games with you. Evan, I interrupted him, my eyes landing on that shirt he'd purposely worn a size too small to show off the results of his triathlon training. Have your lawyer send me the agreement tomorrow morning. Or, use my lawyer? If you want to get to Aspen for skiing sooner. At the mention of Aspen, the light in his eyes even outshone that trace of suspicion. That was the love nest he and Julia had decided on. The last few times he brought up divorce, I acted like a madwoman. Once I even threw an ashtray at him, causing a fracture in his arm. After that, he played the victim in front of his colleagues, claiming he had an emotionally unstable, crazy wife at home. When he looked at me and our daughter, there was no longer that guilt in his eyes, only naked disgust, as if I were a burden hindering his rise. You've finally come to your senses. Evan took a deep breath, a look of unconcealed ecstasy appearing on his face. He practically skipped as he ran into the study and tightly shut the door. The soundproofing in the Connecticut mansion was good, but it couldn't block out the decibels of someone in a state of extreme excitement. Baby, she agreed. What else could she agree to? Divorce. That frumpy old hag finally gave in. I'm finally free, Julia. We can be together openly now. Just like you said, the universe answered our wishes. Have kids? Of course, you can have as many as you want. We're going to have a bunch of kids with excellent genes." My hand still couldn't help trembling slightly, not because of sadness, but because of a physiological nausea. 3 years of love, 7 years of marriage, a full 10 years of time. When he mentioned me to that yoga instructor named Julia, he called me that parasite, that uninspired, desperate housewife. Was I a parasite from the very beginning? I hold a master's in art history from an Ivy League school. In the early days of his startup, it was I who used my gallery connections and savings to pave the first road for him. Later, he said, "Rachel, the family needs you. Lily needs you." And I became the full-time nanny of this big house. Mom. I snapped back to reality. Looking down, I saw Lily standing beside me hugging her teddy bear, her eyes red. That was the restraint unique to a precocious child under American-style education. "Mom, who is Dad talking to on the phone?" "To a colleague?" I tried to lie. "That yoga instructor named Julia?" Lily's voice was unusually calm, so calm it broke my heart. I saw her photo on Dad's iPad. She wasn't wearing any clothes. My heart gave a sudden lurch. These past few years, I've tried my hardest to hide Evan's affair from my daughter, using every excuse in the book to keep up appearances. But kids aren't dumb. She's more sensitive than anyone. The study door opened, and Evan rushed out excitedly holding a draft separation agreement he'd drawn up long ago, his face glowing with the anticipation of rushing off to a new life. But the moment he saw Lily, he stopped dead in his tracks. "Why did you call her out?" He glared at me angrily, growling in a low voice. "You want to use the child to make me feel guilty? Rachel, that's too low." I remembered the first time he brought up divorce. The reason was that he was fed up with my postpartum recovery body. He said I was like a beached whale, making him unable to hold his head up at the partner's dinner. Even though I've already returned to my college weight now, and even though I started doing Pilates and eating those salads that are like grass just to cater to his aesthetic, he can still find a reason. What's the reason this time? "Oh, right," he said, "we don't have a common language." He said I've stayed at home for too long, and my brain is full of nothing but supermarket coupons and parent-teacher conferences, while he is a Wall Street elite talking about Bitcoin and macroeconomics, and I'm talking about organic milk. I'm not good enough for him anymore. "Daddy," Lily's voice interrupted Evan's glare. Evan adjusted his shirt collar somewhat awkwardly. "Lily, why aren't you asleep yet? Daddy is talking about work." "Are you going to divorce Mom and go live with that naked auntie?" The air instantly froze. Evan's face turned beet red. He glanced at me in a panic, then looked at our daughter. The humiliation of being exposed instantly turned into an attack on me. "Did you teach her that? Rachel, you're disgusting. What nonsense are you spouting in front of the child?" "This home belongs to me and Mom." Lily stood stubbornly in front of me, her small body like a warrior. "Dad should have left long ago. You made Mom cry so many times. I hate you." Evan widened his eyes, seemingly unable to believe that this daughter, usually as well behaved as a doll, would say such things. "The one who betrayed this family is you, Evan," I said coldly. "Don't throw mud at the child. Since you want to leave, then make a clean break of it." Evan took a deep breath, as if feeling that saying one more word to this pair of unreasonable mother and daughter was a waste of life. He slapped the document onto the table. "Since everything is out in the open, that's perfect. This is the draft my lawyer prepared earlier. Although some terms might need adjustment, you can look over the general framework first. If you sign, I might consider being a bit more generous with the alimony." I glanced at that document. "Don't bother reading it." I walked over and pulled another document from under the coffee table. This was the one I had Rosen, the best divorce lawyer in New York, draft last week. "Sign this one." Evan froze. You had this prepared already?" "The 10th of last month," I said calmly. He frowned. "Why the 10th?" "Of course he doesn't remember. On the 10th of last month, Lily had a high fever and convulsions. I called him 30 times, but nobody answered. Later, I saw on his Instagram alt account that he was taking bikini photos of Julia on Miami Beach that day. The caption was, "My muse cures everything." At that moment, my love died completely. "Don't ask so many questions." I handed him the pen. "This house belongs to me. I get custody of Lily, and I want 60% of your liquid assets. In exchange, I won't ask for future alimony, and I won't cause a scene at your company or let your respectable partners know that you're a scumbag who abandoned his wife and child." Evan looked at me like he was meeting me for the first time. He quickly flipped through the agreement. Although this cost him dearly, his mind right now was only filled with that woman named Julia, only the upcoming Aspen ski trip, only the desire to break free from this suffocating marriage. The current market environment isn't good, and cash flow is important to him, but future freedom seems more important. He's always thought I was a financial idiot. The annual maintenance costs and property taxes for this house are a huge sum. He might even be mocking me in his heart, thinking I can't afford to keep up this mansion. Fine. Evan gritted his teeth and picked up the pen. "As long as this ends quickly. Rachel, I hope you don't come crying to me begging for money later." He signed his name swiftly. This was the first time in 3 years he had been so decisive. Tonight? After Evan finished signing, that hypocritical elite male demeanor of his returned. "Although we're divorced, I can still sleep in the guest room. After all, it's so late." "Get out!" I pointed at the front door. "What?" I said, "Get the hell out." I smiled. It was the most sincere smile I'd had in years. Since the papers are signed, this is my house. Trespassing is grounds for calling the police, Evan. Evan's face turned green, then white. He looked at me, then at the indifferent Lily, and finally grabbed his car keys, cursed, "Unreasonable, crazy woman," and slammed the door as he left. As the sound of that Porsche's engine faded into the night, I let out a long, heavy breath. My phone rang. It was a text from my lawyer, Rosen. "Is it done?" I replied, "It's done." He signed. Rosen replied instantly, "Beautiful work. By the way, here's some insider info just received. The investment bank Evan works for will announce a layoff list tomorrow, and he's in the top 3. I looked at the screen, and the smile on my lips deepened. Evan didn't know yet that for his so-called freedom, he had just given up the family's most valuable asset, this house, while retaining those options and stocks that looked glamorous but were actually about to become waste paper. "Mom, what are we going to do now?" Lily tugged at my hand. I squatted down, hugged my daughter tightly, smelled the faint scent of milk on her, and whispered, "Baby, we're going to live very well. Very well." "Then what about Dad?" "Dad?" I stood up, walked to the window, and looked at the faint lights of Manhattan in the distance. Dad went to pay the bill for his true love. Early the next morning, I dropped Lily off at private school, then drove straight to the law firm in Midtown Manhattan. Rosen's office was located on the 40th floor of the skyscraper, overlooking the autumn colors of Central Park. He was a Jewish lawyer wearing an Italian, bespoke suit with eyes like a hawk, and was also my college roommate's brother. "You know what, Rachel?" Rosen handed me a cup of espresso. "You are the calmest client I've ever met. Most women at this stage are still obsessing over, does he actually love me? Love is too expensive. I can't afford it." I took a sip of coffee. The focus now is execution. I need to be sure that agreement is ironclad. "Don't worry, it's a sure thing." Rosen tapped the documents on the table. "I've seen plenty of narcissists like Evan. They always think they can control everything, but forget to check the weather forecast. By the way, about his layoff. Is the news accurate?" 100%. The entire M&A department is getting axed. Their performance this year has been total trash, but he seems to still be immersed in the delusion that he's the center of the universe. Rosen smiled mockingly. Once he loses that $1 million-a-year job, plus the high maintenance costs of that innocent girlfriend he has on the side, I'm really looking forward to seeing how he pays his credit card bills next month. I didn't smile, just felt a sense of exhaustion and satisfaction now that the dust had settled. There is one more thing. Rosen took a manila envelope out of the drawer and pushed it in front of me. This is the background info my private investigator dug up on that Miss Julia. I think you'll be interested. I opened the envelope, and a few photos slid out. The Julia in the photos was no longer that polished blogger on Instagram wearing Lululemon yoga pants and meditating by the seaside. Some photos were taken in a cheap bar in Brooklyn. She was smoking, her eyes cloudy. There were also a few pages of a credit report and court records. Julia Carter, real name Julia Kowalski. Rosen explained she owes $50,000 in student loans, credit card debt as high as $80,000, and has 2 records of car repossessions. Oh, the best part is this. She never actually got a certified yoga instructor license. I flipped through the documents, my fingertips stopping on a blurry photo. It was Julia arguing with a man with full sleeve tattoos, and there seemed to be a little boy standing nearby. "Who's that kid?" I asked. Still checking. Right now, it looks like it's that man's, or maybe a relative's. But Julia wires a sum of money to a foster family account in New Jersey every month, though it's not much. Rosen shrugged. Anyway, this squeaky clean soulmate is actually a walking financial black hole. I remembered Evan vowing solemnly last night, "She's innocent, she's not after my money." If stupidity were a crime, Evan should be sentenced to life imprisonment. Keep this info for now. I put the envelope into my bag. Bringing it out now would be a waste. Wait until he's at his most desperate. That's when this will be the straw that breaks the camel's back. Rosen nodded appreciatively. You've changed, Rachel. Before, you didn't even dare to kill a lobster. Because now I know that if I don't eat the lobster, I'll be pinched to death by the lobster. After leaving the law firm, I drove back to Greenwich. Before I even entered the house, I saw Evan's Porsche parked in the driveway again. He's back? I parked the car, walked into the house, and found Evan in the living room directing 2 movers moving things. "What are you doing?" I asked coldly. Evan looked triumphant, obviously having not yet received the company's layoff notice. He was wearing a casual suit, his hair combed slick and shiny. "Packing my stuff." He pointed to those expensive wines and golf gear. "Since we've already signed the papers, I'm moving to the apartment downtown. It's close to the office and also convenient for Julia, convenient for living." He deliberately avoided Julia's name, seemingly trying to maintain a final shred of decency, or perhaps not wanting to provoke me. "Suit yourself." I walked to the kitchen island to pour myself a glass of water. "I've already changed the passcode lock. This should be the last time you walk through this door." Evan's movements paused for a beat, followed immediately by a scoff. "Rachel, you really don't have to be this heartless. We were husband and wife for 7 years, after all." "You also know it was 7 years." He didn't answer, turning around to head into the study to pack his personal belongings. After a while, he walked out holding a dust-covered old cardboard box. I recognized that box. It had been sitting on the bottom shelf of the bookcase for several years. Evan placed the box on the table and opened the lid. Inside was an old photo album and one of those old-fashioned iPod classics. His voice suddenly became somewhat sentimental as he picked up the iPod. "This is the playlist you recorded for me on our first date in college." I remember. It had Coldplay's Yellow on it and every song we had listened to together. Back then he was still a poor international student, and I was just a girl with artistic dreams. I used the money I earned from part-time jobs to buy him that iPod. It was the most expensive gift he had ever received at the time. Evan seemed to fall into memories. He gently stroked the scratched metal casing, a trace of hesitation flashing in his eyes. Things were really innocent back then. Rachel, actually, if you hadn't become so boring, maybe we wouldn't have ended up here. Look, even at a moment like this, he still wants to pin the blame on me. I won't take these with me. He put the iPod back into the box, as if making a ritualistic farewell. Let the past stay in the past. I'm going to start a new life. Taking these old things along wouldn't be fair to Julia. He pushed the box in front of me, as if it were some kind of sacred gift. You keep it, as a memento. I looked at that box, then looked at that expression of self-absorbed sentimentality on Evan's face, and my stomach churned violently. Do you still want it? I asked. No, leaving it for you, he said affectionately. I nodded, picked up the box, walked straight to the door, opened the lid of the trash can, and dumped everything, box and all, inside. With a clang, the iPod smashed against the bottom of the bin, making a crisp sound. Evan was stunned. What are you doing? Those are our memories. That is trash. I dusted off my hands, turned around and looked at him. Don't throw the trash you don't want at me and glorify it as a memento. I don't collect trash, Evan. Evan's face instantly turned bright red, a mix of shame and rage. He pointed at me, his finger trembling. You really are a cold-blooded woman. How did I not realize you were so unreasonable before? Because before I was blind, I retorted coldly. Good, very good, Evan shouted exasperatedly, directing the movers. Hurry up and move. I don't want to stay in this place a second longer. What bad luck. Watching his exasperated, retreating figure, I just found it amusing. Just then, Evan's phone rang. It was the exclusive ringtone set for Julia, a kind of ethereal yoga music with strong, suggestive undertones. Evan immediately changed his demeanor, picked up the phone, his voice so tender it could drip water. Hey, baby. Yes, I've already packed. Of course, I can't wait to see you, too. Meet at the new apartment? Okay, let's properly celebrate our new life tonight. He hung up the phone and glanced at me smugly, as if saying, Look, someone treasures me. I wish you happiness, I said with a smile. I will be. Evan held his head high and got into his Porsche. 10,000 times happier than when I was with you. The engine roared, and he sped off. I looked at the empty driveway, counting down silently in my mind. According to Rosen's news, in another 3 hours, Evan would receive the HR email from the company, and by that time, he would probably be popping champagne, holding that debt-ridden muse of his, and dreaming about the future. What a good show. I turned back into the house, took out my phone, and called my former gallery owner. Hi, Julia, it's me, Rachel. I looked at my reflection in the floor-to-ceiling window, that woman with sharp eyes who was no longer submissive. Is that curator position you mentioned before still open? I think I'm ready to come back to work. A scream of surprise came from the other end of the phone. Life is just beginning, isn't it? But for Evan, the real nightmare was just beginning. The divorce proceedings went unusually smoothly, or rather, in order to rush toward his new life, Evan cooperated almost as if he were fleeing for his life. To get the divorce decree as soon as possible, he even voluntarily gave up fighting for visitation rights with Lily, only symbolically retaining visitation for 2 weekends a month, of course, provided he was free. And in his plans, for the next few months, he'd be busy skiing in Aspen with Julia and sunbathing in St. Bart's. Where would he find the time to look after a 6-year-old daughter? On the first Friday after moving out of the mansion, after dropping Lily off at school, I went to the gallery downtown. Julia gave me a big hug, a hug filled with that long-lost career woman vibe, carrying the scent of expensive perfume and espresso. Welcome back, Queen. Julia pointed at that whole wall of contemporary art pieces. Everything here is waiting for you to come back to life. I put my badge back on, and that feeling of being in control of my life flowed back into my body through my fingertips. After a busy morning, just as I was about to eat lunch, my phone vibrated. It was a screenshot sent by Rosen. It was an internal email sent to Evan with a subject line of only 2 cold words. Position elimination. I looked at the screen and could almost imagine the look on Evan's face right now. At this very moment, inside a glass office building in Lower Manhattan, Evan is sitting in his office with that unbeatable river view. He might have just been picking a restaurant for tonight's date or checking out first-class tickets to Aspen. Then, HR and security will knock on the door together. I've seen that kind of scene countless times in movies and heard it countless times in Evan's past complaints. He used to mock those laid-off middle-aged people as dinosaurs who can't keep up with the times, as trash with no core competitiveness. Now he's become a dinosaur too. What's up? Why are you smiling so happily? Julia leaned over. Nothing, just saw an interesting piece of financial news. I put away my phone. By the way, I want to treat everyone to that newly opened French restaurant tonight to celebrate my new job. Wow, that's awesome. Just as we were cheering, Evan called. I hesitated for a moment, but still picked up. Rachel. On the other end of the phone, Evan's voice sounded a bit exasperated. The background was noisy, seemingly on the street. Did you know all along? Know what? I feigned surprise. Don't play dumb. Rosen is your best friend Kate's brother. He's so well informed in the circle, he definitely told you ages ago that I was getting laid off, right? Evan roared. That's why you agreed to the divorce so readily and forced me to give you all the cash and leave the house to you. You were plotting against me. Evan. I walked to a corner of the gallery, my voice calm. First, it was you who brought up the divorce. This is the 7th time. Secondly, it was you who was in a rush to leave, signing the agreement without even looking at it closely. Finally, as an adult, you should know what no takebacks means. You vicious woman! Evan's voice was trembling. Now I've lost my job, lost the house. How am I supposed to live? That agreement doesn't count. I'm going to sue you for fraud. Go ahead and sue. I laughed. But you need to think clearly. Your severance pay might not even be enough to cover a lawyer's consultation fee. Besides, shouldn't you be worrying about how to explain this to your little girlfriend? After all, you promised to take her to Aspen to stay in a 5-star hotel. The other end of the phone went silent. This was Evan's Achilles heel. The persona he built in front of Julia was that of an omnipotent Wall Street elite, a sugar daddy who could help her jump social classes. If Julia found out he was now just an unemployed middle-aged guy, possibly even burdened with legal fees owed for a divorce. Rachel, can we talk again? Evan's tone suddenly softened, carrying a hint of pleading. Look, I just wanted to pursue a little happiness. There's no need to make things so tense. After all, I put half my blood and sweat into this house. Beep. I hung up the phone directly. Talk? There's nothing to talk about. The Evan who once ran 3 blocks in a heavy rain to buy me cold medicine is long gone, dead because of his greed for power and lust. The man he is now is just a pathetic clown. That afternoon, in an extremely good mood, I planned a new exhibition proposal. When I went to pick up Lily after work, she ran excitedly towards me at the school gate, holding a drawing in her hand. Mom, look, I drew us! There were only 2 people in the drawing, me and Lily standing hand in hand in front of that big house, the sun shining brightly. No Evan. So beautiful. I kissed her forehead. What do you want to eat tonight? Pizza? I want the kind with lots and lots of cheese. No problem. Just as I was taking Lily to the parking lot, I saw that familiar Porsche. It wasn't parked in a proper spot, but was squeezed crookedly by the side of the road, and there seemed to be a new scratch on the body. Evan sat in the car, a cigarette between his fingers. He never used to smoke in front of Lily, even using it to flaunt his self-discipline. At this moment, his tie was pulled loose, his hair was messy, those gold-rimmed glasses were gone, and his whole being exuded a kind of decadent agitation. He saw us, immediately stubbed out the cigarette, pushed the door open, and got out. Lily, he called out, trying to squeeze out a loving father's smile. But that smile was uglier than crying. Lily instinctively hid behind me, gripping the hem of my clothes tightly. Evan, you're scaring the child. I stood in front of Lily, looking at him warily. I'm her dad. I have the right to see her. Evan strode over, carrying a heavy smell of smoke and a hint of alcohol. Lily, Daddy's here to see you. Daddy. Daddy's a bit unhappy today, wants to hug you. He was seeking comfort. When he faced setbacks out there, when his ego was crushed, he remembered this safe haven he had abandoned. Lily shook her head and whispered, I don't know you. You're a bad dad. Evan froze, a flash of hurt crossing his eyes before turning into humiliation and rage. You taught her this. Rachel, what exactly have you been putting in her head? I didn't say anything. She saw it herself, heard it herself. I said coldly, instead of getting angry at the child here, you'd better think about how to pass an interview. I hear the current job market isn't too friendly to unemployed executives over 40. Evan raised his hand in anger, seemingly wanting to point a finger, but under the strange looks cast by the surrounding parents, he forced himself to lower it. Get out of my way, I'm taking my daughter home. I pulled Lily around him and got into my car. In the rearview mirror, Evan stood all alone by the roadside, the wind messing up his expensive bespoke suit. Just then, a young woman in yoga wear got out of a taxi and ran hurriedly toward him. It was Julia. This was the first time I'd seen her this close in real life. She was indeed young, her skin firm, possessing a wild sort of vitality, but right now, her face was written with anxiety and accusation. I rolled the car window down a crack, just in time to hear Julia's shrill voice. Evan, why is my card frozen? I couldn't swipe it at Sephora. It was so embarrassing. Also, that real estate agent called saying the down payment for the apartment we liked in Manhattan isn't enough. What exactly is going on? Evan grabbed her in a panic, trying to explain. Babe, listen to me. There's been a little situation. It's just temporary. Temporary? You said you were partner level. You said money wasn't a problem. Julia shook off his hand, her voice shrill and piercing. Evan, you aren't lying to me, are you? Shh! Don't yell! Evan glanced around, then looked at my car, which hadn't driven far yet, his face bright red. Talk in the car. Get in the car. The two of them tugged and pulled at each other as they squeezed into that scratched-up Porsche. I closed the window, shutting out that farce. Mommy, who is that lady? Lily asked. A person who teaches Daddy how to do math problems. I started the car, speaking cheerfully. Let's go eat cheese pizza. Over the next few weeks, rumors about Evan began to circulate in Greenwich's social circle. This wasn't surprising. In this wealthy enclave of only a few thousand people, news spreads faster than a virus. Some said they saw Evan at the unemployment office. Some said his Porsche was listed on a used car website. Others said he was arguing with someone over equipment at a not-so-upscale gym. But my life was like a river thawing in spring, full of vitality. Working at the gallery helped me rediscover my sense of worth. The Female Awakening-themed exhibition I curated was a huge success, even making it to the art section of Vanity Fair. In the photo, I was wearing a sharp white suit, smiling with confidence and composure. That afternoon, I was checking a newly arrived painting at the gallery when the girl from the front desk suddenly ran over, looking a bit strange. Rachel, there's a lady outside looking for you. She says, she's your friend. Friend? I walked out of the office and saw a familiar back in the lobby's lounge area. Julia. She wasn't wearing yoga clothes today, but had changed into a designer suit. If I wasn't mistaken, it was an out-of-season Chanel, and it didn't fit quite right, looking like it was rented or picked up from a second-hand store. She was holding a huge Hermes Birkin bag, but the sheen of the leather gave it away at a glance. A knockoff, and a poorly made one at that. Seeing me come out, Julia immediately stood up, wearing that soulful, fake smile she had practiced countless times. Hi, big sis Rachel. She actually called me sis. Her voice was sickeningly sweet. Long time no see. I didn't expect you to be working here. Have we met? I crossed my arms, eyeing her coldly. Also, please call me Miss Lee or just Rachel. I don't remember having a sister." Julia's smile stiffened for an instant, but quickly returned to that pitiful look. She brushed back her hair, revealing the Cartier bracelet on her wrist, which was most likely fake, too. "Oh my, although we haven't formally met before, Evan mentions you often. He says you're a very capable woman. It's just, you don't really understand the joys of life." She tried to establish a sense of superiority with this put-down. "Actually, I came today to talk to you about Evan." "Oh, if it's about his unemployment benefit application process, you should go consult the Department of Labor." Julia choked for a moment, her expression faltering a bit. She took a deep breath, seemingly deciding to stop beating around the bush. "Rachel, we're both women, so I'll just say it straight. Evan has hit a bit of a career bottleneck recently, but this is just temporary. You know his ability. It's just that right now, we're having a little difficulty with cash flow." She paused, looking at me with flickering eyes. "I heard Evan gave you that house and most of the cash. Actually, that is your joint property after all. I feel that as an ex-wife with a conscience, shouldn't you? Even if it's just lending him some funds to turn things around? After all, he supported you for so many years." I almost laughed out loud. This is the innocent, not in it for the money, true love Evan talked about? She actually ran over here to ask his ex-wife for money? First, that was the property division clearly stated in the divorce agreement, not charity he handed out to me. I stepped closer, looking down on her. Second, supporting me? I earned more than him before we got married. After marriage, I took care of the family, the kids, and even helped him handle taxes and networking. That makes me a partner, not a kept woman. Do you understand? Julia's face flushed red. She clearly hadn't expected me to be this tough. How can you be so mean? Her eyes reddened instantly, tears coming on cue. Evan is in so much pain right now, he can't sleep at night. Don't you feel sorry for him at all? He is Lily's father. I only feel sorry for my daughter. I took a business card out of my bag and handed it to her. Since you love him so much and are so understanding, now is the perfect time for you to show what it means to share weal and woe. You can teach a few more yoga classes or take on a few more promo deals to help him tide over the crisis. Isn't this the litmus test of your true love? Julia didn't take the card. She stared hard at me, and the mask in her eyes finally cracked, revealing the greed and venom underneath. You think you've won? She lowered her voice and hissed viciously. The one Evan loves most is me. You're just an unwanted old hag. When he makes a comeback, you'll regret treating me like this today. Then I'll be watching. I turned to call security. Security, escort this lady out. She is disturbing my work. When Julia was escorted out by security, she was still cursing and swearing. Watching her wretched retreating figure, I sent Rosen a message. The fish has taken the bait, but it's even hungrier than I imagined. Check Evan's recent credit card bill. I think there will be a surprise. Not long after, Rosen sent back a file. It really was a surprise. Although Evan has lost his job, he didn't tell Julia the truth. He's still maintaining high consumption, trying to use credit card overdrafts to plug the holes and keep up his rich man persona in front of Julia. And Julia? The bill shows that in the past month, she used Evan's supplementary card to buy 2 designer bags, went for a full set of cosmetic treatments, and transferred money to an account 3 times. The name of that account was Sunshine Foster Care. Is this that little brother? I looked at the screen, my fingers tapping lightly on the desk. Evan is still dreaming, thinking he's just in a temporary slump, thinking that as long as he keeps up appearances, he can turn things around. Meanwhile, Julia is like a vampire, accelerating the draining of his last drop of blood. This pair is truly a perfect match. That night, when I got home, I unexpectedly received a call from Evan. He had obviously had too much to drink, slurring his words. Rachel, did you see Julia today? Did she go looking for you? Yes. She doesn't know any better. Don't hold it against her. Evan was actually apologizing for her. She's just too worried about me. She's an innocent girl, hasn't seen this kind of world. Innocent? I thought of that foster family's transfer record and couldn't help but want to laugh. Evan, do you really love her? I asked suddenly. Of course. Evan's voice suddenly pitched up. She is my salvation. Only when I'm with her do I feel alive. Unlike being with you, which is just like being in prison. All right, I said calmly. Since you love her so much, then I'll give you a wedding gift. What? You'll know when the time comes. Hanging up the phone, I looked at the moonlight outside the window. I knew Evan was preparing for a wedding. He needed this wedding to prove to everyone that even after leaving Wall Street, even after the divorce, he was still living well, still a winner in life. He wanted to use this wedding to slap me in the face, to slap the faces of everyone waiting to laugh at him. But he didn't know that this wedding would be the biggest joke of his life. I took out a photo. It was given to me by Rosen. In the photo, Julia was struggling with a man covered in tattoos. That man was the one I saw at the mall. Rosen found out that man's identity. Jack Miller, a truck driver recently released from prison, with violent tendencies, and also that fostered boy's biological father. But in the story Julia spun for Evan, she was single, had never been married, and certainly didn't have children. Since Evan likes surprises so much, then I'll help him make the surprise a little bigger. I picked up a pen and wrote an address and time on a sheet of exquisite stationery. That was the location and time of Evan's wedding. Then I put it in an envelope, and for the recipient I wrote, Jack Miller. The show is about to begin. Evan's wedding was set at a seaside estate on Long Island. This was originally a place he chose to show off style, but given his current financial situation, this was undoubtedly a huge gamble. I heard from mutual friends that to pay the venue fee, Evan sold off a few Rolexes from his collection and even dipped into his parents' pension. That pathetic excuse was probably short-term cash flow. Payment from a big project is coming in soon. The wedding invitation was designed to be very flashy, with gold font printed on heavy cardstock, reading, "Witness the union of true love and souls." I wasn't intending to go. For an ex-husband's second marriage, the decent thing to do is to offer polite indifference. But Evan specifically had someone deliver the invitation to me, attached with a note, "Bring Lily. Let her see what a real happy family is." A real happy family? This isn't just a provocation. This is a declaration of war. He wants to show off his new life in front of Lily, wants to prove that leaving us mother and daughter was the most correct decision he's ever made. "Mom, are we going?" Lily looked at that glittering card, a trace of unease in her eyes. "We're going." I stroked her head, my eyes determined. "Someone invited us to watch a circus show. Why wouldn't we go? Besides, Mom wants you to know, no matter how others perform, we have to believe our own eyes." On the day of the wedding, the weather was gloomy, and the sea breeze carried a hint of a salty, fishy smell. It wasn't the bright sunshine Evan had expected. When Lily and I arrived at the venue, quite a few guests were already there. Evan was still keeping up his superficial facade, wearing that haute couture suit, probably the last one in his closet that hadn't been pawned off at the dry cleaners, with his hair slicked back meticulously. Julia was wearing an intricately designed lace wedding dress, but I'd bet it was rented since the hem was dragging on the ground like it didn't quite fit. "Rachel!" Evan saw me and immediately walked over with Julia. His eyes shimmered with a near-pathological excitement, like a hunter eager to show off his trophy. "I didn't expect you to actually come. I thought you'd be hiding at home crying out of jealousy." "Jealousy?" I smiled, casually grabbing a glass of champagne from a waiter's tray. "Jealous of your debt ratio? I heard your credit card got declined again this week." Evan's face went stiff, and he lowered his voice to hiss angrily. "That was a bank system glitch. Don't you start spreading rumors here." "Whether it's a rumor or not, you know perfectly well yourself." I took a sip of the wine, turning my gaze toward Julia. "The bride looks very beautiful today. This dress, the rental fee wasn't cheap, was it?" Julia glared at me fiercely and clung tighter to Evan's arm. "Evan bought this specially for me. He's the man who loves me most in the world." "Is that so?" I looked at her meaningfully. "I hope this love can stand the test. After all, the real test hasn't even begun yet." The wedding ceremony began. The MC was an unknown third-rate actor, reading the vows Evan wrote himself with that exaggerated announcer voice. In this materialistic world, we found each other's pure souls. The guests offstage were sparse. Many of Evan's former colleagues hadn't come. Most of those present were Julia's baffling influencer friends, holding up their phones to live stream, shouting, "Fam, this is true love." Just at the moment Evan was about to put the ring on Julia, a commotion suddenly came from the estate's main gate. "Let me in! That's my wife and kid!" A rude male voice broke that hypocritical sense of sanctity. Evan's hand trembled, and the ring almost fell to the ground. He turned his head and saw security guards trying to stop a man wearing a leather jacket with full-sleeve tattoos. The man was holding the hand of a 6 or 7-year-old boy. The child was crying, his face covered in tears, clutching a worn-out transformer in his hand. "What is going on?" Evan frowned and roared, "Security! Kick him out!" "Julia, you stinking bitch!" The man shoved the security guard aside and stormed toward the center of the lawn. "You told me you were going to the city to work and pay off debts, but you ran here to marry a pretty boy? You want to dump me and our son? No way in hell!" Julia's face instantly turned ghastly pale, that carefully crafted exquisiteness crumbling as swiftly as if splashed with makeup remover. She backed away in terror, nearly tripping over her long dress. "Who are you?" Evan stepped in front of Julia, but his voice betrayed obvious guilt and fear. "If you come any closer, I'll call the police." "Call the police? Fine, go ahead." The man pulled a crumpled piece of paper out of his pocket and threw it right in Evan's face. "This is the paternity test. This kid is mine and Julia's. She sends money to the foster family every month. She lied and told you it was some charity donation, right? That's our son's foster care fees." The whole place fell deathly silent. There was only the whooshing sound of the sea breeze blowing across the lawn and the sound of that little boy sobbing. Evan picked up that paper, his hands shaking like a leaf in the wind. He looked at the name on it, Julia Kowalski, looked at that 99.99% parent-child relationship conclusion, then looked again at that crying little boy. That boy didn't look anything like Julia. Instead, he looked like he was cast from the same mold as this rude, tattooed guy in front of him. "Julia..." Evan turned around, his voice hoarse. "Is this true? Is this what you call innocent? Is this what you meant by blushing, even just holding hands?" Julia broke down. She knew she couldn't keep pretending anymore, so she fell to her knees before Evan with a thud, clutching his pant leg and crying out, "Evan, let me explain. That was a mistake I made when I was young. I was tricked. I was afraid you'd look down on me, so I didn't dare tell you. I really do love you." "Love me?" Evan suddenly laughed, a laugh uglier than crying. "You love my money, right? Too bad I don't have any money now. I'm just a broke loser now. And I was actually hoping your pure love would help me get through this tough time." "What, no money?" That tattooed guy, Jack Miller, froze for a moment, then flew into a rage. "If you're broke, what are you acting like a big shot for? Julia said you were going to pay off my gambling debts. Since you got no money, then pay with your stuff." Saying that, Jack rushed up to snatch the diamond ring on Evan's hand. The situation instantly spiraled out of control. Evan and Jack were wrestling on the ground. Julia was screaming and trying to pull them apart, and that rented wedding dress got torn, revealing the cheap shapewear underneath. I stood on the outskirts of the crowd, quietly watching this scene. Lily was so scared she hid behind me, not daring to look. "Don't be afraid, Lily." I crouched down and covered her eyes. "This is the price of lying. Remember, Never weave lies for the sake of vanity, because lies will always be exposed one day. That day, the wedding turned into a farce. The police showed up and hauled off both Evan and Jack for fighting. Julia sat on the ground crying her eyes out, while those live-streaming friends had long since run off. I took Lily and turned to leave. The sea breeze blew against my trench coat, and I felt a sense of relief like never before. Evan's dignity lay shattered on the ground. It was 2 days later when Evan finally got out of the police station. Although he wasn't prosecuted, he was fined for brawling in public and disturbing the peace, and he now had a record at the police station in that wealthy district. For someone who used to style himself as an elite, this was worse than jail. What was worse, Julia had run off. After finding out the truth that Evan was bankrupt and drowning in debt, that soulmate packed up everything valuable in the apartment overnight, including Evan's last few bottles of fine wine and that Dyson hairdryer he hadn't had time to return yet, and vanished without a trace. Rumor has it she left with that tattooed guy, maybe to find her next true love, or maybe just to dodge debts. Evan was left completely and utterly alone. Late one night, a week later, my doorbell was rung frantically. I looked at the surveillance monitor and saw Evan standing at the door. He looked like a hobo, unshaven with stains all over that once expensive trench coat, clutching a bottle in his hand. "Rachel, open the door, I know you're in there." He banged on the door panel, his voice slurred and unclear. "This is my home. I have the right to come in. I have the right to see my daughter." I called the police, then walked to the door with my phone and shouted to him through the door, "Evan, leave here. I've already called the cops. If you don't want to end up in the station again, you'd better scram right now." "You called the police?" Evan laughed hysterically from outside the door, his laughter chilling. "You wicked woman. You planned this, didn't you? You were the one who called that bastard that day, weren't you? You ruined everything for me. It was your own greed and stupidity that ruined you." I said coldly, "Did you think about the consequences when you cheated? Did you think about today when you forced me to divorce you for that female con artist? You even gave up custody of your daughter for that woman." "I was wrong, Rachel, I was wrong." Evan suddenly knelt at the door and began weeping uncontrollably. "I was out of my mind. I don't love her, I only love you. I want to come home. Please, let me come back. Can we start over? For Lily, let's give Lily a complete family." Watching the man kneeling on the ground and crying his heart out on the surveillance screen, I didn't feel a single ripple of emotion. I even felt that sympathy was a waste. That's men for you. When he's riding high, you're the mud on the bottom of his shoe. When he has nothing, you're his last lifeline. "It's too late, Evan," I said. "Lily doesn't need a father like you. Your existence only brings her shame." The sound of police sirens drew closer. Evan heard the sirens and stood up in a panic, wanting to run, but it was already too late. 2 police officers got out and pinned his drunken self against the police car. Watching the flashing red and blue lights take away that man who was once so high and mighty, I turned and went back to Lily's room. She was sleeping soundly, holding that teddy bear in her arms. This nightmare is finally coming to an end. However, Evan's lower limit was far lower than I imagined. A few days later, Rosen told me that Evan had been charged. The charges weren't just simple harassment, but serious financial fraud and embezzlement. It turned out that in the last few days before he was laid off, to fill the bottomless pit of Julia's debt and to maintain his fake wealthy lifestyle, he took advantage of his position to embezzle a sum of money from a client's account. He thought that as long as he paid it back before that upcoming, but non-existent, big project return arrived, no one would be the wiser. But he got laid off. That money became bad debt. The amount was huge, and the evidence was solid. The FBI got directly involved in the investigation. This was the real killing blow. That day, I received a call from Evan's lawyer while I was at the gallery. "Ms. Lee, I'm Evan's defense attorney." The voice on the other end was very formulaic. Mr. Evan is in a very bad spot right now. He wants to see you at the detention center. He says he has some important things regarding Lily's future to explain. I wanted to refuse, but at the mention of Lily, I hesitated for a moment. All right, I'll go. The day I went to the detention center was a sunny afternoon. Through the thick glass, I saw Evan. He was wearing an orange prison uniform, his head was shaved, he had lost a whole size in weight, and his eyes were sunken deep. That elite who once called the shots on Wall Street now looked like a walking corpse. When he saw me, his eyes lit up, a kind of light that made me feel sick. It was the look of a drowning man seeing driftwood. "Rachel, you came." He picked up the receiver, his voice trembling. "I knew you still had me in your heart. After all, we were husband and wife for 7 years. "I came for Lily," I interrupted him coldly. "You have 5 minutes. When you're done, I have to go back to pick up the kid from school." Evan's expression stiffened for a moment, then immediately switched to a pitiful look. "Rachel, I'm really done for this time. The lawyer said I might get sentenced to 10 years. 10 years! By the time I get out, I'll be old and I'll have nothing left. This is what you deserve." "No, I was forced. It was that Julia who forced me. I only touched that money to pay off her debts." Evan banged on the glass frantically. "Rachel, help me. I know you have the title to that house. You sell the house or mortgage it. Help me pay back that money. Maybe the judge will go easy on me. Please, for the sake of Lily not having a dad in prison." I looked at him like I was looking at an alien creature. At this point, he was actually still plotting on my house, still using Lily as a bargaining chip. "Evan." I took a deep breath, leaned forward, and looked straight into his eyes. "Listen to me. That house is mine. It's a home for me and Lily. You won't get a single cent. As for Lily, I'll tell her that her father went to a very far place to atone for his mistakes. She will take you as a warning and learn what responsibility is, what honesty is." "How can you be so cruel?" Evan roared in despair. "I'm her dad." "It's precisely because you're her dad that I can't let you ruin her future." I stood up and put down the receiver. "Evan, this is the last time we meet. Goodbye." I turned to leave, the sound of Evan desperately banging on the glass and cursing coming from behind me. Walking out the gates of the detention center, the sunlight was so blinding it made me want to cry. But I didn't cry. I took out my phone and sent Rosen a message. "It's over. Help me change Lily's surname. I want her to take my surname." Rosen replied instantly, "No problem. Welcome to your new life, Rachel Lee." I took a deep breath of the air of freedom and drove toward the school. I knew the road ahead was long, but I would never look back again. 3 years later in New York, a cutting-edge gallery in Soho, I was cutting the ribbon for my new exhibition, Rebirth. The gallery was packed with people, and flashbulbs were flickering. "Congratulations, Rachel!" A warm male voice sounded in my ear. I turned my head and saw Mark, my new partner and also my current boyfriend. He was a gentle pediatrician who knew how to listen and respect. "Thanks." I smiled and linked my arm with his. Just then, Lily ran over. She was already 9, had grown a lot taller, and her smile was bright and confident. "Mom, that reporter asked me, what does the cocoon in this painting represent?" Lily pointed at the huge oil painting behind her. "Tell him. That represents the past." I patted my daughter's head. "Only by breaking out of the cocoon can a butterfly fly." Lily nodded, seemingly half understanding, and ran off to be interviewed. I know, in some dark corner, Evan is flipping through this magazine in the prison library. Maybe he'll regret it, maybe he'll be resentful. But none of that matters anymore, because I've already flown far away.